Alright folks, welcome back to another video. Glad to have you back for one more. I'm very excited to get into this video. I know I said I don't do a lot of air, but I've been playing a lot of it lately. Definitely leaning more into making air videos because I'm having fun making these videos for tips to try to help you guys upgrade your gameplay a little bit. Because I've been seeing a lot of people talk about stuff in chat where they're perfectly lined up, they got the perfect angle, their sights are ready, but when they shoot, somehow their rounds are just not hitting hard enough and they're not really sure what's going on with that. So in the game War Thunder, it's not just how good your aim is or your placement, it's your ammo. Especially in air, ammo matters so much. So the right belt that you have can mean the difference between victory or you just die and you miss and you get embarrassed and you get put in TikTok. So in this video, we're definitely going to talk about why ammo belt choice can either win you fights or lose you fights and can be a total game changer depending on what you want to do. So make sure to stay tuned. We're going to get into some good tips here and talk about the ammo belts and the difference and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video. Woo! Alright, so before we get too much in the video, what I'm going to do with this one is we're going to go through every single belt that there is, and I'm going to kind of list off the pros, or not really pros and cons, but I guess what the ammo is best used for, because I wouldn't say that any belt in this game is better than any other belt. It just is all based on the context. So of course, certain rounds are going to be better at ground pounding, but some of them are going to be better at shooting at plane targets or lightly armored targets. So it really just depends on what you're trying to do. So make sure, I'm going to have everything timestamped down below. If you want to look at a certain round type or a belt type, you can just go to that. That's what I'm going to do, is just have what these rounds I would say are best used for. And if there's anything you want to change, just go ahead and drop it down in the comments down below if you have anything further that I didn't mention in the video now. So the first belt that we're going to talk about is just the default belt. It's just a balanced mix usually of some armor piercing incendiary tracer rounds. It's got like API or HEI or HEF. It's just got some pretty basic round. It's got a good mix of everything. It's not anything too crazy. It's really easy to aim because it has tracers in it, and it's pretty much like a mix of an all-around thing. It's like a hybrid, I would say. Doesn't excel at anything, but it's good if you're not really sure what belts you want to use. It's really good if you're a beginner and you don't really know what you want to use yet, and it's good for if you want to strafe maybe some lighter targets or maybe some air targets, because you can really do both. Now you do got to be careful because again, since it's a mix of things, some of the rounds you shoot won't do, you know, strafing ground targets, or some of them may do overpin on plane. So you really got to be careful about that, but it's a good round to kind of dip your toes in the water and figure out what you want to do. Okay, so the next round type that we're going to talk about, or the belt type, is going to be the universal belts, which is full of things like API, APIT, and I, which is just incendiary. Those are really, really good because it's a mix of a bit of everything. It has incendiary rounds in there and it has armor piercing incendiary. Those are really good. They're really good for shooting not only planes but ground targets as well. This one is something that doesn't have the most pin, even though I know it has armor piercing. It doesn't have like super crazy pin as if you just pick strictly armor piercing rounds. It is still really good for trying to shoot maybe some softer targets, some like anti-air or howitzers. It's also again really good for shooting planes because you have the incendiary tracer bullets. Those are really, really good for setting planes on fire, or if you can pin something on the ground like a lighter vehicle, you can maybe set it on fire with your incendiary filler in that round. I do think this one's probably better for usually like the lower BR things. I don't really see it as an option on the higher ones too much, but even so, it's really just a different version of default in my opinion, in case you're not really sure what you want to do yet. It's still got a decent mix more on the armor piercing side of things, so you probably could run into more overpen situations, but since you have incendiary filler in there, you may be able to set something on fire, you're never sure. It's still a good belt, again, if you're kind of trying to figure out what you want to do. It's a good mix of belts for air targets and ground targets in regards to the softer ones. Now the next belt that we obviously are going to talk about is air targets. It's very, very, very heavy on the HE rounds, and I think it has a tracer in there so that way you can obviously see what you're shooting, but it's designed specifically, obviously in the name, is air targets, because it does a lot of fire damage and a lot of explosive damage. So if you are strictly going to be going for the AI plane targets or other planes, 100% use this. It's good for dogfighting, head-ons, really anything, bomber interception, because if you're shooting a lot of tracers or a lot of explosive rounds, you can set one of their engines on fire or take off a wing or something like that, or take off their rudder, because it has again a lot of HE and tracers. So one of those things will be happening. It's very, very good. If you're strictly just going for plane targets, I'd 100% say use air targets, because in the name, what is it meant for, guys? Air targets, so it's perfect. Now the next belt type we're going to talk about is armored targets or ground targets. I think it's called ground targets, but I read that as also armored targets, since most of the ground targets you're shooting are what? Armored. It's usually filled with armor piercing rounds, so that way you can pen things. Now, some of them are APHE, where you can, when you shoot a ground target, it has APHE in it, so once it pins, it blows up. But that's like really rare that planes have that. Not a lot of them have that. On average, it's just gonna be straight ground targets, which again is filled with AP rounds, which do not explode when they pin. They just go straight through. So think of it like you're shooting tiny needles at stuff, depending on what caliber it is. Like if it's 50 cals, if it's, you know, 50 millimeter, those can be the difference on how big the round is and how much you have to shoot stuff. But it's very focused on the AP filler on those. Doesn't have too many tracers and incendiary, but it has a lot of penetration on most of the rounds, since most of the rounds in that belt are AP. It's more ideal for shooting probably armored things like a bomber. I would still probably say incendiary rounds are better than using that, but since those things have more armor, since they're heavier, you know what I mean, or like some medium tanks and stuff, those are really good for that. I would say you have to pay attention more to the caliber before the belt, because if you have like 50 cals, using armored targets doesn't really do too much unless you're shooting at like lightly armored things. But if you got like a cannon, like 23 millimeter, 30 millimeter, 27, 45, 50 millimeter, that is, the AP rounds pack a punch. It is very good, especially if you're top down. So you got to make sure you also pay attention to the angle, because it'll tell you what angle pen there is. Usually you just want to do top down anyways. But it's best for strafing armored targets or bombers, since usually those are things that have more armor that you kind of want to punch through. It's really good for also just straight cast, for if you're playing in ground for anti-tank, you know, if you're doing cast, it's great for that, since again, top down, you can just punch through stuff depending on the caliber of the round. Armored targets are great if you're just focused on, oh, I need to strafe ground targets for my challenge, or I need to kill some of these, you know, convoys. Armored targets are perfect for that. Now, the next belt that we're going to talk about is the tracer belt, which in the name, tracer, what do you think the belt's filled with? Tracers. So it has a lot of tracer rounds, so you're definitely going to see where you're shooting. A lot of you guys see people run this on things like the F-82 or the P-47 because they have so much ammo and they have like so many guns. Not only are they shooting a laser beam at you, like it looks like they have the death blast from Mage Arena on their plane. All those rounds, they're going to either shred you to pieces or set you on fire, or probably both. So you really got to be careful with that, because if someone's shooting those at you, they have a very high chance of setting you on fire, because all those rounds have like flammable, I don't know, I'm having a stroke. The chances for them to set you on fire with tracers is really high. I don't want to say like they're flammable. Flammability? I don't even know. Tracer rounds set you on fire a lot of the time. They're very good for if you're not really good with your aim, say you're new to the game, or you just want to get better at practicing with that plane. Using that tracer rounds is great because they have more rounds in there, so that way you can get used to, okay, these are how the guns shoot, because when you switch between things, it's not too big of a difference. I think I have heard sometimes that they can have different velocities or something like that, but I'm not 100% sure on that. At the end of the day, using tracers is a great way for you to practice your aim, so that way if you're in a long range engagement, if you're in a dogfight, you can see how the bullets and how the guns work. That way when you change it to a different belt type, if you don't have as many tracers, you can still have a decent idea and handle on what you're doing. And this belt is great again for not only learning how it shoots, but it makes it really good for the next belt that we're going to talk about if you want to use that, which I would say is the upper echelon of plane players. All right, so the next belt that we're going to talk about again is like the top 1% of War Thunder players that can actually use this consistently and do good, because I can use it sometimes, but it's not consistent. I get a kill and I'm like, oh my gosh. Now I can use stealth on like a freaking, you know, an American plane, because they have like 5,000 bullets, so I'm gonna hit you sooner or later. It's still really hard to use it because you don't have any tracers at all. Contains mostly things like HEI and HEF and AP rounds, but you cannot see any of the bullets. You have them and you are shooting them, but you will not see them at all. Neither will the enemy. They're very good for like if you're trying to surprise somebody and fly up behind them, or just straight up scare someone, because they're not gonna even see that you're shooting. They will hear the bullet snap past them, but they won't see them on your screen. So if you are not only an experienced pilot, but you want to do like ambushes or surprise attacks and things like that, this is a perfect belt for you. It's really good in head-ons as well, because some people don't see bullets coming at them, so like, oh, I'm just gonna keep flying at you because you're not shooting. Next thing you know, 15 quintillion stealth belts pierce their freaking plane. So it's really good. It's also good again if you're like sneaking up behind somebody and they're just flying and they don't even know you're there, because you can miss and they might hear the bullet snaps, but they probably won't think about it until it's too late, because they won't see any bullets flying past them. Usually when people see the bullets flying past them, like, oh my gosh, somebody's shooting at me. But when they hear it, they're kind of like, what is that? It's really good to use stealth belts if you're like really confident in your aiming aiming with the plane, because again, stealth belts, no one sees them until they die, so it's really, really, really good to use stealth belts. It's really fun to use it too, because you can kind of test how good you are at that plane. I really suggest using them if you kind of want to give yourself a little challenge when you're playing air. All right, so I definitely want to take the time now that we've went through all the types of ammo belts to go ahead and recap which ones we talked about. Firstly, we talked about the default belt. Secondly, we talked about the universal belt. Third was air targets. Fourth was armor targets / ground targets. The fifth was tracer, and the sixth was stealth. Now, in all honesty, each one of these is very strong in their own context. You have to make sure you're using them for the correct things, because to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree is not smart. So if you judge a stealth belt on the fact that it cannot strafe ground targets that are armored, that's kind of not, doesn't make sense. So first thing that you want to do is make sure you're using the right belt. Second, like you want to use the right belt for whatever you're doing. You know what I mean? It depends on if you're going for air targets, ground targets, light targets, soft targets, hard targets, whatever. Make sure you identify your target that you're going for. Secondly, pay attention to the caliber of your gun, because again, if you're shooting out of a cannon or a machine gun, those things can really determine what you're doing. So even if you have armored target rounds, but using a machine gun like a 50 cal, it won't do that much compared to if you have a 20 mil or a 30 mil or a 40 mil. So you really got to pay attention to the caliber of the gun more than the belt type, because that can really change how much you can do with that belt to its full potential. You also want to make sure that you're paying attention to how the belt is formatted and the way it's laid out. If you look at each belt, it'll show you what rounds go first, like in the order. It'll show you a picture of the belt start to finish. So that's how the belt will go through the plane. It'll either have the AP round first, and then a few HE, and then a tracer. Each belt has a different arrangement of how they are. So you need to make sure you're looking. It'll show you a image with a little video of how the ammo reacts when it hits a target. And again, it'll show a little picture of how the bullets are arranged. You can figure out, okay, so this bullet shoots first. Sometimes it's like, okay, you have 5 bullets and the first 3 of them are AP, and then there's a tracer, and then there's a HE round after that. So things like that can really change up how you look at the belts, because if it's mainly HE and not AP rounds and you're trying to strafe ground targets that are armored, you may want to go for something that has more AP rounds and something that has more HE rounds. So just make sure you're paying attention to the arrangement of bullets in that. That way you can again get more understanding of the belt that you're using. All right, so we have come to the end of another video. I hope this helped you guys a little bit. Again, I'm not the best at air. I don't play it too much. I've been getting more into it, but there's some people like AVR, you know what I mean, people like that are super well versed. People in my chat are way more well versed, like Prog, for example, in the plane's abilities. Frogger is pretty good at it as well. So they're really good at knowing, oh, well, this plane has this, the missile does this, the trigonometry of the diaphragm of the Pythagorean theorem type stuff. So I definitely gave you like a basic overview. This is kind of like air target belts for idiots, if y'all know that book, or for dummies or whatever it's called. So I definitely gave you like a overview of them rather than going into super detail. I went into much detail as I could, but I'm not the smartest at it, so I may have misspoke here. So if there's anything you want to add that I left out, please drop in the comments below, so that way somebody can follow behind you and get some more information. And if you have any video ideas, drop us in the comments as well, and I'll credit you on the video when we make them. Want to go ahead and also take the time to thank y'all for 800 subscribers. Y'all are awesome. We're on our way to 1,000. Again, when we hit 1,000, I'm gonna try to have some little special things for 1,000. Not only am I gonna have a special video, maybe some new graphics, maybe new intro, maybe new outro. Thug shaker.
Rowan, do the thug shake.
The what shake?
Do the thug shake.
What's that?
The thug shake.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know, but we'll see. So again, thank y'all for the love. We're on our way to 1,000. So if you haven't already, drop a sub. It means the world to me in this community. Make sure to drop a comment as well and a like. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Have a blessed day. Be safe. Love y'all.